our next video, we have Premier of Ontario Doug Ford deflecting from essentially his skirting of the emergency order public commission that took place, where we launched a whole campaign about it at stophiding.ca, I believe it was, because Ford was hiding behind parliamentary privilege to evade his subpoena to testify at the Public Order Emergency Commission that took place in Ottawa a few months ago. And he's just now being questioned about it by the mainstream media. So listen to his response.
Sure. Premier Ford, we haven't had a chance to ask you yet about the Emergencies Commission report. Justice Rouleau said that the people of Ottawa have felt abandoned by your government during the convoy standoff, and he criticized your reluctance to help resolve it. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that's their opinion. It's furthest from the truth. We were on this every single day. I want to thank Commissioner OPP and all the police officers around the province that were deployed to Ottawa. And I'm just going to phrase it this way. The Mayor of Ottawa and the police chief, they had their jobs. The Mayor of Toronto, Mayor Tory, and Chief Raymer, they had their jobs. It was night and day. When the convoy came to Toronto, they came, they did their little protests, they were gone because Chief Raymer had operational experience. He was ready. Mayor Tory did a great job, and that's about as far as I'm going to say about the folks in Ottawa. The people that were in charge are no longer there. So we'll kind of leave it at that.
Wow. John Tory did a great job. You know, Tamara, as we chronicled for years during the height of the pandemic, what did we see here in Toronto? We saw a restaurateur having the mounted unit come in to shut him down because he was serving lunch to an appreciative crowd, while 400 meters down the road, Costco had their food service unit open, never had to shut down for an hour. We saw protests being violently shut down. And I'm talking about peaceful protests, okay? Really peaceful protests, i.e. there was nobody tearing down statues and throwing spray paint bombs at anyone, including one of our most infamous clips is a single solitary protester at Yonge and Dundas waving, God forbid, a Canadian flag and getting tackled by the Toronto Police Service. How, in anyone's estimation, is that the mayor and the police chief doing a good job, Tamara Ugolini?
Well, and also I should mention here that by the time the convoy made its way to Ottawa, and I believe it was January roughly the 25th or 26th when they finally landed in Ottawa. And then the protest was planned the week following that in Toronto. So by the time that people were coming into Queen's Park to start protesting, Doug Ford already had a full week of seeing and witnessing the events unfold in Ottawa to have the foresight to be able to say, wait a minute, we're going to stop this before it even gets started. And for any of our viewers who are wondering, we were there on the ground covering what happened in Toronto. The Toronto police blockaded blocks, like several blocks all around encompassing Queen's Park, so that you couldn't even get a single car into nowhere close to Queen's Park. That's our parliamentary buildings there. Here. And so we were on the ground protesting that day, and trucks did try to get in there, and they were blockaded by police. They had brought in all city vehicles, so they had tow trucks, they had heavy equipment. They blocked off every single entrance to Queen's Park. And even myself, as a journalist trying to head in there to cover this, I had to go through a police blockade. And, you know, I didn't have my phone out because I was driving, and I so wish I had have captured this, but they stopped me. They asked me that if I fell into the three reasons they were letting people in: for work, for my job, for work, for school, or for an appointment. And I said, well, I'm going for work. And so no problem, go on through. But they were stopping every single vehicle trying to get in, and the major roadways were blocked completely. So I had to kind of skirt in on like one of the little side streets there. So they had that foresight a week prior that they knew. And I think that also it was Justin Trudeau's rhetoric. Remember when he referred to this as a small fringe minority?
Yeah.
I think that the government actually believed that this was just a small fringe amount of people that were coming to Ottawa to protest their mandates. They never envisioned that this would be such a large groundswell, grassroots uprising, really, of Canadians coming together collectively to say, finally, enough is enough and you need to listen to us. But because Canadians had been being ignored by all levels of government for 2 solid years, and there was no other way to get the attention at this point of the elected officials that were supposed to be representing their constituents all throughout this time, but they were not. So this was a really peaceful but extreme way to showcase just how many Canadians were fed up and they wanted to be heard. And so Doug Ford had a week's worth of this protest unfolding in Ottawa to say, okay, we need to take some serious steps here to prevent a similar thing from happening in Queen's Park. And similar to what they would do in a dictatorship, they did. They blockaded and prevented our democratic right to protest with city taxpayer-funded vehicles, taxpayer-funded police.
100%. Tamara couldn't have said it better myself. And, you know, you look at the other protests during the pandemic. I'm thinking particularly the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter protesters coming to Queen's Park en masse. Oh, and by the way, violating social distancing rules, violating masking rules, and all the health officials saying, well, yeah, it's understandable because, this is such a human rights movement. They didn't say this, but this is what they're implying, that, the Wuhan virus wouldn't dare infect them for congregating if it's for Black Lives Matter. And not all that peaceful. They were always throwing spray paint at the Sir John A. Macdonald statue. I think one time they tried to tear it down, but since none of these Lugans has an engineering degree, they didn't know how to. And what I found funny is that the response to that was Doug Ford barricading the Sir John A. Macdonald. He's still in a coffin right now with a garbage bag on his head. Mm-hmm. And boy, that is just symbolic, Tamara, of how much Doug Ford has changed since becoming premier. The first city, I believe, out of the gate in terms of tearing down a Sir John A. Macdonald's statue and putting it into storage was Victoria, BC. And I clearly remember Doug Ford saying, if you think the founding prime minister of our country is that offensive, send it to Ontario. We'll put it on the north lawns of Queen's Park in addition to the one we have in the south lawn. So he's gone from that, having 2 Sir John A. Macdonald statues, if Victoria decided to give it up, to covering up the one that remains there. And as you can see, there's the paint. There's Egerton Ryerson, my old alma mater. Not called Ryerson anymore. It's and you see the paint being tossed. And by the way, where are the cops when you need them? I think that's illegal, isn't it, Tamara? Getting a bucket of pink paint and tossing it on a statue. And there, folks, that is what you see right now. And that plaque is basically, and it's been there for a good 2 years now. It's like, we're thinking about this statue because some people are kind of offended, and we're going to look into it and figure out what we need to do. I mean, it's 2 years, for goodness sakes. Take down that coffin and put the prime minister on full display. Why are you bending the knee to the mob? And if it is triggering to people and they come down there with buckets of paint and ropes to try to tear it down, arrest them. Instead of turning a blind eye to crime. But no, when it comes to the trucker convoy, no. Those are the barbarians at the gate. We're going to set up a perimeter. You're not getting anywhere near Queen's Park or Young Dundas Square, literally the town square, to exercise your right to protest. I think the double standard is pathetic and appalling, Tamara.
Mm-hmm. And it's just all par for the course these days.
Yep.
I mention it all the time, and I've actually coined this term now. This belongs to me. It's the hypocrisy of the bureaucracy.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including Me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.